Welcome in. It's primary night in Colorado as the Democratic Party in our state makes a move toward the center and the state Republican Party continues its long-running implosion. I'm Kyle Clark.
And I'm Kim Christensen. The results have been rolling in for a couple of hours now. There are a few storylines we're following tonight, and we have crews all over. We want to tell you where we're going to be going to. We have crews in Denver, Colorado Springs, Pueblo, Windsor, and Thornton. They are spread out covering various races. We're going to hear from them throughout the newscast as we look at the impact of tonight's results.
As expected, Republican Congresswoman Lauren Boebert has cruised to a win in her new district, moving over the Continental Divide from the 4th Congressional District on the Western Slope to the 3rd in Dougco Loveland in the Eastern Plains. That race wasn't even close as she heads for re-election in a safe Republican district. For the Colorado Republican Party, not voters, but their leadership, it's been a horrendous night. GOP Chair Dave Williams got drubbed in his congressional primary, and of the 18 races in which the state party decided to endorse, they have lost or are trailing in 14 of them.
One of their endorsements being for Boebert, which was a given to begin with.
She pulled them across the finish line on that one.
Right.
So they may get 3 wins out of 18 races for the Colorado GOP that dropped its neutrality rules to endorse this year.
And Dave Williams has been invisible tonight, we might add.
He holed up in a church for a while with a pastor friend who's also a state representative, left without saying anything, wouldn't allow the media inside, so we've yet to hear from the state GOP chair. On the Democratic side, of course, the tension is between centrist Democrats and progressives. And at this point, the centrists, backed by some big money interests, have had a really impressive night. They have won or are leading in 8 out of 11 races we are tracking.
And one of those races being Elizabeth Epps, who was well known to many people because she was so vocal on so many areas, and she lost tonight.
By 30 points, a sitting state legislator losing by 30 points. Strong message sent by voters in East Denver tonight. But let's head back to the 4th Congressional District. This is Congresswoman Lauren Boebert's new district. She's moved from Rifle to Windsor, and an absolutely overwhelming win against a field of 5 challengers who couldn't decide who should run against her one-on-one, so they all ran against her, and they split the anti-Boebert vote pretty evenly. She ended up with 43% of the votes. Let's bring in our Mark Salinger, who is at her party in Windsor. 43% would not have gotten her the win in a one-on-one race, but there's no saying that all of that anti-Boebert vote would have gone to one person. Certainly, she would have been some other folks' second choice. She has to feel pretty good about a 43% win.
Yeah, I mean, 43%. It was a landslide tonight. She's winning by more than 30,000 votes to her closest opponent, Jerry Sonnenberg. That's a lot. In fact, she called it a night early this evening because her race was called at around 7:30 tonight. She spoke for a little bit afterwards, but it was an early night here in Windsor at the Lauren Boebert campaign. It went very well for them. Of course, you can go through all those hypotheticals on what a one-on-one matchup would have been like. The reality is that all those 5 other opponents could not coalesce around one other person, and therefore we have a Lauren Boebert win with about 43-44% of the votes. Now, in a state when many of the Republican candidates try and distance themselves from former President Donald Trump, Boebert, not one of those people. She's flying the MAGA flag proudly. As soon as she won, she put on a MAGA hat and Trump-branded sneakers, took the stage in those, and told everybody else to coalesce around her now.
I'm looking forward to unifying all of the opponents, all of the candidates who are in this primary race for CD4, because you matter, and I want the people who are close to you to still be in that fight for you, for us, for our children, for our country.
So her opponents couldn't come together around one other person to run against her. So now she's asking all of them to come together and support her. Now we want to talk about really quickly about her moving to this new CD4 district. She was, of course, on the Western Slope in Congressional District 3. She won that election to Democrat Adam Frisch a couple of years ago by just 564 votes. Kyle, now, that's paying off moving to this other district. She's winning the Republican primary by around 30,000.
All right, Mark Salinger, thank you. And as expected, the Republican won the special election also tonight to fill out the rest of Ken Buck's seat representing the 4th Congressional District. Greg Lopez defeats the Democrat Trish Calvarese and, most importantly, beats her by roughly the margin that Ken Buck was winning his races by. So there's no indication that that very red district is moving to the center or to the left at all. There's no indication. So there's no indication that Boebert would be particularly vulnerable or that folks there are fed up with Republicans. There's just no sign of it in what we saw tonight.
And we're going to hear a lot more from her in the weeks and days and months ahead, but she has sort of shifted her messaging in a very evangelical way.
Yes, what people would say a Christian nationalist message. Yeah. She's very much embraced a Christian nationalist message. We saw that on the stump tonight. But she is a machine into and of herself, separate from what's going on with the Colorado Republican Party.
She's got so much national attention.
Yep.
That's the one race that people have been following around the country.
Yep.
So much more to be said on that. We also want to move on to District 5 because Jeff Crank has been declared the winner there. When you look at the number beating the head of the GOP, Dave Williams, as we said, we haven't been able to communicate with him or even see him. Marshall hasn't even been allowed into the gathering tonight, but that is quite a loss in that district.
Yeah, Marshall, I mean, really a humiliation for Williams tonight, who reoriented the party to serve his personal interests, to prop him up and to attack his opponent, and tonight he got drubbed.
And he left his own watch party around 8:30, 8:35, and that was at a church of Briargate, which has the pastor of controversial state representative Scott Bottoms, the controversial Republican representative. He's pastor there. That's where he held this watch party that was closed, and Williams left at 8:30. So we went for a ride farther north in Colorado Springs. Photojournalist Chris Hansen is going to take us inside here where we just arrived. We're going to come in with you. We thought maybe Dave Williams was going to come congratulate or concede to Jeff Crank, the opponent in that CD5 race. So we came to Jeff Crank's gathering, and you can see Crank there in the middle of the room being interviewed by other members of the media, but I do not see Dave Williams here, so he has not obviously come here to concede or say any words to Jeff Crank. We were also warned that maybe Williams was going to the El Paso County Clerk's office to be gathering outside where the votes are being counted. Right now, Jeff Crank might have the most power in the Republican Party, taking down congressional candidate Dave Williams and also party chairman Dave Williams. We'll get a word with Crank in a moment here, but this is a little bit more of an exciting backdrop than the dirt lot we were standing in outside of a church watch party that we weren't allowed in and weren't even allowed any water inside.
He's mad about the water thing. He wanted the water because it's very hot in this
Very hot
tonight.
today.
Yeah.
You did have a great view outside when you started, by the way, though, Marshall. That twilight view, it's pretty. So, yeah, now eyes on Jeff Crank, well-known conservative radio talk show host, and now we'll keep our eyes on him.
When we look at the situation in the Democratic Party, you have an ascendant progressive wing that's been taking more and more seats at the state legislature and pulling sometimes uncomfortably centrist Democrats, like the governor, Jared Polis, to the left on issues, places that they don't want to go.
Talking about things they didn't want to talk about.
A ban on so-called assault weapons. Polis doesn't want it. A lot of centrist Democrats don't want it. But 2 years now, progressives have brought it forward, moved that issue a little bit to the left, moved that issue a little bit to the left. Well, tonight, centrist Democrats have had a big night, backed by a lot of big money, dark money that's come into races around the state. There are 11 races that we're tracking around the state, including the races of those two progressives, Elizabeth Epps and Tim Hernandez, both sitting state legislators. Both of them are trailing currently in their races representing East and West Denver, respectively. And in the 11 races involving progressives around the state that we are tracking, the progressives have lost or are losing 8 of the 11. 8 of the 11. Those two probably being some of the best-known names. Our Angeline McCall has been following this fissure within the Democrats' party tonight. And Angeline, you'll hear folks on the far left say, we're not losing on ideas, we're losing because of big money. Until you talk to voters, you don't know, but that's what they'll say.
Yeah, Kyle, we talked with Representative Tim Hernandez, and when those initial results dropped and he was trailing, he said only 800 votes, right, roughly, and he has optimism, right, for the next ballot drop. Next ballot drop came through pretty much unchanged in those results, and so what we're seeing here is races that ultimately had a ton of money, not only in the months and weeks leading up to this, but also in the final days of this election. And so with Tim specifically here, right, in District 4, Tim Hernandez versus Cecilia Espinosa, this is a race that they have actually, done before, not necessarily to voters, but in a vacancy committee, and that committee voted for Hernandez. And so when you look at the results here, this is the first time really voters have their chance to say, are we as left? Are we as progressive? And Hernandez will tell you that he is the actual progressive in this race, as we know that Elizabeth Epps is as well. And in that race, right, it is a significant trailing right there. And as far as the party, right, I asked Tim, I said, where does this go from here, right? When the future of the party, and he said, well, tonight's going to be that decider. If actual progressives, if true progressives, if this is the future of the party. And right now, like you mentioned, 8 out of 11 races. And so we have, a few more to look at, but looks like the majority of people are saying no to progressives as of right now, still with pending results for these races that we're talking about, District 4 and District 6.
Sets up a really interesting scenario in 2 years when a lot more of these seats are going to be up, and centrist Democrats will look to hold the line. Angeline McCall, thank you.
So we want to take a look at some of those numbers that Angeline was just talking about as well. State House District 6, Sean Camacho, who is the winner in this race, well-financed, centrist challenger. Oh, now we're seeing, I'm sorry, the one that Angeline was just talking about was Tim Hernandez. Now it's Sean Camacho, winning significant by a large margin over Elizabeth Epps. But then we also look at the Tim Hernandez race. And again, we're talking about the same kind of scenario, although it's a little bit tighter in his challenger, Cecilia Espinozo. So it's a little closer there, but both of those progressive Democrats having a difficult night.